My grandmother disappeared in 1981. My grandfather's never stopped looking for her. There's a tone in Mill Creek that haunts the bones, and it wanders through the trees around this town. It's taken other people too. So my grandpa and I built a machine to follow it. Strange things happen here. Murders in light, brilliance in shadows. I'm Orin, and this is Wave Glass. The melody of the maker is eternal, Grandpa said in a gravelly Johnny Cash in his later years voice. The painting above the workbench was of a 1,000-winged bird made of copper and clay. Her rib cage contained the multitudes. Waves and light spilled through her seams, and she was clawing the surrounding emptiness to shreds. The scent of oil paint lingered in the shop. "What did you say?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the painting. He cleared his throat. "It's the name of the painting. The melody of the maker is eternal," he said. "Too much, isn't it? A little too grandiose. Let's just call it the melody of the maker." He exhaled and tapped the frame. This was the first one I painted after you found those words, and I tried to put it together. The resonance engine interacts with the underlying tone we found, that odd feeling we got when you turned it on. That's it. It doesn't produce the sound. It helps us hear what's already there, I think. I can't recreate the tone, though. No one can, but it's everywhere. I kind of think it has something to do with creation. And those words you found in that handwritten account of Ta buried in your school's archives are like threads, stitching the creative tone to ideas and to other frequencies. He gave a diffident half-smile. "So I've been calling it the God tone, or maybe creation tone, I don't know. You can probably come up with something better." He pursed his lips and stared at the ceiling, searching for his next words. "Every religion claims their God created the world through sound, right?" "Did they?" I asked. "Well, pretty much every creation myth starts with sound, with spoken words," he said. "The Bible has 'Let there be light.' Egypt has Ta speaking the world awake. Pick a culture and the pattern's the same. Science calls the kickoff a bang, and that tone sits at the core of everything, like the marrow." He stretched the word out long, then paused for a moment. "They said Ta formed the universe, structured and built it in his heart. Then he spoke, and it came to be. It feels kind of strange actually doing it, though." "What do you mean doing it?" I asked, confused. "I mean creating." My grandfather explained that the resonance engine fed off the marrow of sound. The same power he believed spun the universe at the start, but it needed a supporting note and the words to round out the chord. A triad. Like the Trinity. Without all three, nothing happened. At least that's how he understood it at the time. "Yeah, marrow of sound. That's a pretty good name for it," I said, testing out the phrase. "It really is my work, though," he said. "I mean, it's not like I shouted abracadabra and poof, a masterpiece arose from the abyss. But the feeling of the piece, I designed it in my heart, imagined the emotions I wanted someone else to feel when they looked at it, and I had to really feel them first. Then I slipped into a trance. I don't know, it was like intense focus. The world was pushed into the background like a stage setting. I didn't have to think about techniques or anything like that. I already know how to paint. So it was like a choreographed, rehearsed dance. Just my hands and my brush. And the motions just came to me. No stopping to second guess, no pausing to think this color's off or that shape's wrong. It happened fast because I'd already done the work in my heart. And my head just followed. Make sense? No, of course not. It doesn't make sense to me either. "Grandpa, where have you been?" "Oh, that. Well, I only just got back, and honestly, I have no clue." He tried to explain. He'd been using the resonance engine to create all this new art. Art I was sure would make him famous if the public saw it. "I experimented with different chords, took notes, documented everything," he said. I assumed it was the residual glow from working in the presence of the marrow of sound, but I thought there ought to be more to the marrow, much more. It felt bigger than art. I sensed a candescent optimism. I kept re-entering those luxurious trances, and then I'd come out the other side with a painting or a fine sculpture. I hadn't yet tried playing music while attached to the marrow of sound because it simply hadn't occurred to me. The visual art had been driving me so much. A week or two ago, I set up my music gear, excited just to play. I was getting ready with my first warm-up scales when the headstock on my guitar knocked over a cup of water, he said. The water splashed, and before it had the opportunity to parade across the desk, one drop dove straight into the chamber on top of the resonance engine. The drop hovered there, centered between each of the engine's resonators. Instead of forming a blob or a wobbling, watery sphere, the drop fragmented into fractal projections. And then I reached for the engine and he said he felt a flash and everything went dark. The darkness was complete. After a very, very long while, Everett Dess was mollified by a royal crown glowing in the far distant sky. The air was sweet, fresh and warm, too warm. The smell was unfamiliar. A lapping sound drifted in the distance, small, tinkly, and crystalline. The landscape, for that was what it was silent, apart from the galloping chimes just within earshot. He moved. Oh, how he moved. Everett Dess moved with the ease of a child, as if the gravity of age had loosened some of its grip. Was this heaven? He nodded heavenward, but could not identify constellations. He looked down. There was dirt under his feet. He took off his shoes. He wiggled his toes in the dirt. The ground was blanketed in a gray-green filigree, fine threadwork, delicate like an old man's beard. It looked organic, maybe fungal, and lay across the ground like the train of a veil. And it gave way underfoot. So he knelt to touch it. It was soft, like tubes of hollow skin. It crumbled when he gave it a squeeze. He rolled it in his fingers. It was earthy and sweet in his nostrils. He saw no trees, but the light was very, very dim, blurring all detail into shadows. An inner prompting drew him toward the lapping sound. After half an hour, Everett came to a shoreline that stretched as far as his eyes could make out in the dim glow. He knelt to touch the water, but it wasn't water. It was like liquid, but the stuff had structure to it. It resisted him. It shifted between his thumb and forefinger. The waves stood only a few inches high, quick to form but slow to fall. Each break released the articulate toll of tiny bells, collapsing and dissolving back into the shore. He looked on this with wonder. Was he dreaming? No, this was very real. But Everett could find nothing else. He walked away from the crystal shore, toward the budding glow on the horizon. After what felt like a full day of walking, the first ray of lambent blue pierced the landscape, so sharp and so direct. A few hours later, another beam followed, illuminating the lace-covered ground. Indigo veins stretched from underfoot to the sill of the sky. He thought perhaps this world star only grazed the horizon at its zenith. Neither of us had considered that water might affect the resonance engine. Why would we? We still didn't understand what we created, or what we were fucking with. Grandpa described the place he'd arrived in as peaceful and lifeless, save for the crocheted netting that crawled across the ground. He was sure that that grid was alive, and though spellbound by the surreal interstellar scene, he forced himself back to reality. There could have been predators, radiation, who knew what. It was a wonder he was alive. He knelt again to steady himself and breathed in a whole bouquet of new smells, then marveled at his very breath. Resurrecting the rapid chain of events that brought him here, Grandpa remembered the drop of water and made his way back to the crystal shore. He turned the resonance engine on again fully aware that a drop of something other than water might trigger a different response, but he had nothing else. And staying surely meant death. He couldn't do that to Orin. He took another deep breath and let one drop of the tinkling, glassy liquid fall into the engine. The drop hovered, forming the same fractal pattern as the water in his shop. Nothing happened. Grandpa thought about the process and focused on the details. He wondered if the tones we generated in the engine contained some kind of instructional code, maybe directions to this place. And maybe water, an element, triggered the journey, but he thought returning home would probably require new instructions, wouldn't it? Maybe he needed to change the tones to form a different chord. He adjusted the second dial on the engine. Nothing. Reset it. Tried the third, the infrasonic dial. When the tone dropped below 8 hertz, the self-evolving symmetry twinkled and dissolved, along with everything else. He again felt that flash, and everything went black again. Then he was back in his shop, in Mill Creek, on Earth. The resonance engine wasn't magical, or even particularly high-tech. It was just an instrument. But it was starting to feel like a magic wand. I didn't know if it amplified power. It didn't seem to create anything other than notes too low for humans to hear, but it let us feel them or something, and manipulate what was already there. My instincts told me that our engine was dangerous, so I walked back to the workbench with dithering reluctance. The resonance engine no longer looked like a box full of tones. It looked like a tiger that had just eaten a good meal, momentarily sedate, presently still. At the bottom of the spiral wave chamber sat an element from another world. With the resonance engine turned off, the drop lay benign in the hollow, hard as rock candy, holding its fractal shape. When I looked at it up close, it looked like a sharp-faceted crystal, the shape of Romanesco broccoli, with shrinking patterns on endless repeat. We had no idea what it was. No clue why it had solidified or why it hadn't turned back into liquid like the water had. This alien matter was a complete mystery. Until we understood it, we had to lock it away and keep it far from the resonance engine and out of sight. And just then my cellular phone rang, startling us both. And Grandpa bought me a new Nokia just before sending me off to school. It was the newest in new. He wanted to make sure he could check on me. It was pretty cool, too. It even had Snake 2, a game where you tried to keep a ever-growing snake from running into itself on the bright monochrome display. Hello? It was Patty. Oh my God, Patty, I burst out. How the hell are you? How was New York? Are you kidding? I heard an incredulous note of concern in her voice. I just found your note, and I'm worried sick. What's going on? Are you okay? I also heard something sweet in her tone, like the color of her voice was composing a love note for me. And I felt the words like poetry. I was a bit surprised by her affection, feeling a bit unworthy of something so genuine. Mirroring my grandfather's words from not an hour ago, I said, I suppose I have a lot to explain. I ran upstairs so I could have my conversation in private. Patty didn't say much while I told her about my trip home and about almost being attacked by Grandpa and his plunger. I made the decision earlier not to lie to her, so I said that Grandpa went on a last-minute trip, which was true. Luckily, she accepted that, and to my relief, started filling me in on her trip home. Manhattan was great. I got to see Thurston Moore play with Rashid Ali at the Cooler. It's this little club in the meatpacking district. You would have loved it. My brother Anthony came with me. He's a big Sonic Youth fan. Anyway, we spent Christmas at home and went up to Jack Frost in the Poconos for some snowboarding the next day. Not really my thing, though. I wiped out a lot. As she talked, Patty's voice reminded me that there was still normal things going on in the world, that there were people out skiing and going to concerts. There were families wrapping up their holiday rituals and kids returning to school. Orin, do you still want to go back to school? Grandpa asked, reading my thoughts. There are a couple of days left, and you could fly back to Colorado. I'll get your car out to you. I said no. I was going to miss my friends, especially Patty, but I could see them soon enough. School had been fun. Having that doing life on your own independence felt great. But after everything that had just happened, college suddenly seemed small. Set college next to a literal universe of opportunity, and it paled. After kicking it around for a minute, I decided that I wanted to pick the books I read from now on. Besides, I wouldn't need a degree for the path I had in mind. Right then and there, I declared I was going to be an interstellar rock star and some kind of space explorer. No, that wasn't quite right. I didn't really want to be a rock star. I wanted to be more like a red dwarf star in the pantheon of alternative rock and folk music. An iron and wine candle flame, not a Foo Fighters stage light. That would be enough for me. Besides, Grandpa had already done what no other human in history had ever done. He'd set foot on another planet, in another galaxy. If we were really going to explore, we needed a ship, and that probably meant money. I was already sketching a starship powered by a next-generation resonance engine. We also needed to keep it quiet and do research and design. But I wasn't worried. Grandpa's art and my music could fund it. Every new piece he made looked like a masterpiece to me, and I figured others would agree. One painting could probably fetch $50,000 in a Portland gallery. Music, art, love, I believe those things could change the world. I didn't know anything about taxes, agents, gallery fees, or marketing, or whatever the marrow of sound even was, but hey, that was for some fat future version of me to worry about. I couldn't wait to write songs with that new focus Grandpa had found. With the marrow of sound guiding me, maybe my songs would jump straight from my soul onto tape, or spill out of car radios. And then I wondered, was that cheating? A line from an old Rich Mullins song drifted up from memory. I don't cheat on my taxes, I don't cheat on my girl. I've got values that can make the White House jealous. I was always so damn hard on myself about doing my work the hard way. Like every fraction of a note was so important. So I despised the shortcuts and the auto tools and repetitious structures that popular artists presumably used to cheat. I never liked cheating. Even in video games, it felt shitty, like I wasn't good enough to get there on my own. On the old Super Nintendo, you could punch in cheat codes, unlock powers, play God. But I liked grinding through it. I'd usually crank up the difficulty just to test my mettle. The previous summer, we got a Nintendo 64. Super Smash Bros. Was my favorite. In Versus mode, if you set things up just right, you could break the game and play as Master Hand, the final boss who fired lasers out of his fingers and slapped characters across the screen. Controlling him felt like wielding forbidden power. But since it was just a glitch in the code, it was a cool challenge just to make it work. Now, Grandpa and I had found a glitch in the universe. We found some loopholes in the code. Only this wasn't a game. We were stepping out of the sandbox and into the real world. I only hoped my new video game analogy wouldn't extend to the versus part. The last thing I needed was an interstellar adversary or a boss battle with a god. Still, I thought this cosmic glitch looked fun and definitely profitable. What can I say? I was young. I brought Grandpa my Master Hand plan, certain I'd found the perfect path to success. He listened patiently, then gently put the brakes on my revving enthusiasm. "Hang on there, Orin," he said. "I thought our prime directive was to keep this on the down low. Are people really going to think it's normal if a 65-year-old man suddenly becomes the new darling of the art world? And his only grandson rockets into rock and roll stardom at the same time?" He let that sink in. Also, remember how subjective art and music are. They're unpredictable, Orin. I've known quite a few brilliant musicians, better than the pros, who never broke through. You don't just need good work. You need sales, and so far I haven't found any settings on that engine of ours to boost popularity. I was stumped, but only for a second. I pointed to the wall behind him where he'd painted Einstein's words in big, bold letters. "It's not that strange to make it late in life, Grandpa. Look at your wall." Einstein worked in a patent office until one paper changed everything. And Van Gogh only sold like one painting in his life, and then he became a legend. "Everyone starts at the beginning," I said. "You've got hundreds of paintings stacked in the spare room. I've been playing music my whole life. This isn't a shortcut. It's just an open door. We'll still do the work, but now we'll be playing in master hand mode. That grin I love so much crept back over Grandpa's face. We can try, Orin, he said.
Thanks for listening to Waveglass. Written and read for you by Aaron Lewis Gibson. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved. No part of this podcast may be copied, shared, or rebroadcast without permission, except for brief excerpts used in reviews or commentary. If you're enjoying the ride, tell a friend, leave a review, or just hit subscribe. See you next time.